All right. I am so fired up. I've got one of my favorite people in the world on Impact TV show, Dr. Frank Luntz. I really appreciate your time. I'm going to do a little intro on you because it's so well deserved. Frank Luntz is one of the most honored communication professionals in America. He's been covered as one of the most influential people in the world by Time Magazine and was previously a winner of Washington Post coveted Crystal Ball Award for being the most accurate pundit. Frank's focus groups have become so influential, they've been profiled on 60 Minutes and Good Morning America on Election Day. He has been a guest on virtually every talk show in America, including multiple appearances on The Daily Show and Real Time with Bill Maher, as well as Meet the Press, Nightline, The Today Show, the PBS News Hour, and Face the Nation. Frank has worked with more than 50 Fortune 500 companies and been an invaluable resource to my own PR agency, KCOM. He's done some of the most brilliant focus groups for us in the past. His political acumen and skills are recognized globally, and he's served as an election consultant and commentator in several countries.
You're going to run out of time.
Well, I know. We're almost done with the interview. Frank is the author of 3 New York Times bestsellers and a great friend to the Internet Marketing Association. He's spoken at our conference. We've been so fortunate to have him over the years as a great resource and friend to us. So, Frank, I won't waste too much of your time. I was so honored that you invited me to your own interview with one of my favorite sharks, Mark Cuban, on Friday. You started off with some great data that you extracted yourself. Job security, finances, savings, and cost of living. All of it was trending towards not so good or poor about how Americans are feeling right now. Can you comment a little bit on how these statistics are at 50%, nearing 60%, and some of your feedback on this initial survey on the state of our United States of America?
And actually, over the last week, it's now hit 70% that believe that we're in a recession as we speak, and 20% believe that we're in a depression. And it's only going to get worse. As we record this, moments ago, oil stock prices dropped another 600 points. Oil continues to crash. People's expectations about the coming weeks and months are getting worse and worse. This is a very, very tough time, and it's spreading. It's not just small businesses. It's not big businesses. It's everybody feels the pain. And while we do not know someone who's had COVID-19, only about 1 out of 5 of us do. 4 out of 5 of us know someone who's either lost their job, had their wages cut, or saw themselves or some in their families furloughed. And that's significant. So the pain is being spread around. It's not limited to one region of the country. It's not limited to any class. And the tragedy is that it's getting worse, and we do not know what the bottom is. And I know that I've had people that I've spoken to in chats like this who've been much more optimistic, such as Mike Milken. But I'm not, because I study public opinion, and in all the numbers and all the measurements, they are continuing to fall.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about that, Frank. You've been through Y2K. Remember 2000, all the computers were supposed to glitch and fail the banks. We lived through 2001 and 9/11 and the implications that followed. And then our economy suffered the Great Recession around 2008, which kind of like took several years to get out of. How in your mind is this one different? And how do you see a potential getting back to the way we were? Is this more of a V-shaped economic recession, depression, or is this more of a bell curve, a U? I mean, what are you thinking? What letters come into mind?
That's good. As Trump says, I'm not a doctor, and he's surrounded by doctors and medical professionals and researchers. I'm not an economist, and I can only tell you what the public says and what they respond, because I am a pollster.
Yes.
And their feeling is that they don't know what the new normal is going to be. And therefore, I can't tell you. I believe that shopping malls are going to have a challenge going forward as people are slow to re-enter the public space. I think sporting events are going to have a problem as people don't want to sit among 20,000 or 40 or 60,000 people. I think that could be a while before they start concerts. And frankly, a place like Madison Square Garden or the LA Coliseum or the Staples Center and places in Chicago, the iconic places, it's going to be a while And a while to me is months, not a few months, but many months
Right.
before we return to normal. Some bands that I know personally have canceled their tours, not for 2020, but for a year. That's into 2021. So we're going to need some sort of impetus. We're going to need a day and an event and a moment that we decide that we're America again.
Right.
And I know the president was hoping to open up by Memorial Day. I've heard people say 4th of July. I'm wondering if we can get it done by then, and I actually hope so. And that to me is the target date where the country opens up, where we celebrate who we are as Americans, that we have survived the examples that you gave.
Yeah.
And that we've come back. And we need that special day. And so I think it's going to be July 4th when we come back and try to create the new normal.
Right. And I think even Mark Cuban said in your interview, maybe even creating a separate holiday just to celebrate coming back. And that is something that we as Americans need more than anything, is that drive and that encouragement, that empowerment among ourselves to come back and celebrate being out. However, there's still the health implications of a potential, not V, but maybe a W, right? Of it coming back, or a second strain, a little bit different. Now, you talked about different industries like sports and hospitality and entertainment, but there are some industries, especially in the Internet Marketing Association, we see some of our partners that are in the cloud environments. You look at Google, Zoom, these companies are growing in significant ways. Do you see the economy potentially stabilizing because you're having growth in some sectors? And we all know that the airline industry, entertainment, sporting venues, those are all going to be affected. But could there be sort of this effect that's going on where it's like high-low sort of thing? What are your thoughts on that?
Not only could there be, but I believe there will be. And it was Mark Cuban who said, look at AI.
Yeah.
Because that's where we're going to see a lot of development, a lot of investment. And I look at shopping online, and I do believe that the online industry, the online advertising, if I want to reach people that are paying attention, they're paying attention here.
Yeah.
They're paying attention when they go and make purchases, whether that's home products or things that they otherwise would have gone to stores. We are bunkering in at home, and that is going to change very slowly. But we still have access to the world thanks to the web. We still have access to commerce thanks to internet marketing. And actually, I think that's going to be the driver. And I'm not saying that just because you're interviewing me. I really do believe that that's the driver.
Right.
And I really do believe that our shopping behavior will have changed. I would not want to be a restaurant owner right now. And I even know a couple of my favorite restaurants in LA, New York, and Vegas have closed. And the sad secret, without naming them, is that they're not going to reopen again.
Right.
But on the web, we have connected in ways that we never connected before. We have calls in ways that we never did before. I'm doing 3 of these today where I get a chance to see you.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done a lot of online shopping in the last 5-6 weeks. I get a delivery every single day.
Right.
And I wouldn't have gone to the store to pick this stuff up. And now it comes right here. It's
Right.
easy, it's convenient, it's safe. And so, yes, you are correct. My issue with the economy is that this will not replace that. This augments it, and it augments it in a very strong way.
Right.
And we're going to see those companies that have a strong presence online. Macy's is an example of a company that has shuttered all of its stores right now.
Right.
How many stores reopen? That's going to depend on their presence online.
Right.
Does Neiman Marcus come back? I don't know, because they don't have a good presence online.
Right.
This is going to matter as much, if not more, than the big box stores, than the actual physical presence. And they're going to have to augment each other. But in the end, this conversation is important.
Yep.
What you do is important, but it doesn't replace the old-fashioned mall, and I'm very afraid of what happens there.
Right. So let's talk about the power of message, communications, public relations. We have so many of our clients and people in our community that are reaching out to us, and we're talking to them proactively on how to message to all their stakeholders. They have the external, they have their employees, their workforce, their customers, their prospects, and everyone's a little confused on how to message. And Frank, one of your proteges is one of my partners, Jeff Montahano, and you've done incredible things to folks like Jeff and I as a mentor. You've helped us become better communicators and helping use the right word choice when going out with the communication to stakeholders. How important is it now for these businesses in the way they communicate, and what sort of advice do you have for them? As a lot of them really don't know what to say and when to say it. Do they look insensitive? Are they taking advantage? Are they not saying enough? What are your thoughts on that?
I think some of the communication has been awful because they say exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
At this great time of concern and anxiety, our thoughts and prayers go out first and foremost to our people. We want them to stay safe, and be healthy. The problem is every business says the same thing. And if everybody says the same thing, it means nobody is saying anything at all.
Right.
Have a nice day is meaningless because everybody says it and nobody means it. Right. If you really want to cut through the clutter, I'll give you, and to the listeners of this, you shared the questions with me. And candidly, I didn't read it because otherwise then this would be boring. Of course. You have to say something that people have not heard before. And the opening sentence, and it should be one sentence, is so empathetic and so emotional. And if you've heard it said before or read it, you cannot say it. That's point number one. Point number two is that a lot of CEOs are sending letters either to their clients or their customers or their employees. After the opening sentence, it's that PS that really matters most. They will read the very beginning of the communication. They will then scroll down to read the end. And only if they are compelled by the opening and the close will they read the stuff in the middle. Right. So your PS matters more than it ever has.
Right.
And also, it's not just words, it's visuals, it's pictures. And a number of companies are doing some great advertising, both online and frankly on television. And if it gets to your gut, if it really connects to you and it doesn't feel generic, then it's working.
Right.
So you cannot take photos from the web. You cannot cut and paste. I know that companies don't have the money now in marketing, and I know that they have to cut corners. I get that. Mm-hmm. But if it looks contrived or manufactured, if it doesn't look original, so if I'm talking to you from LA.
Right.
If I cut pictures together of people in farmlands in Kansas and Iowa, then I've got no credit.
Right.
If I don't want to prove to you that I get it, and I'm a company that's based in LA, I better have Santa Monica, I better have downtown LA, I better have the neighborhoods, the communities. If I'm doing something out of New York, it better not just be Manhattan. I better have Brooklyn and Queens and the Bronx included. You have to be authentic, you have to be real, and you have to say things that nobody has said before.
Absolutely. Could not agree with you more. And to really highlight just an experience that we've had, we have our annual conference in Las Vegas called Impact. And to our surprise, Wynn Resorts called us in the offensive saying, hey, we want to give you options, knowing that this was coming. And as far as mind share, that just puts them into the top category for me because I'm going to refer them. I'm going to talk about their good corporate citizenship. We've never experienced anything like that. So I think that's a great case study for other businesses, small or large, knowing how hard we're all going through the same pain. But to be in that offensive, to really empathize and to show, hey, we're here to build relationship. We're here to work with you because the imminent outcome is going to be what it is. And I think some companies are doing it right.
The fact that Vegas first hotels are really decimated. Mm-hmm. And I think they're going to be one of the last industries to come back. And add to that it's Las Vegas and the entire strip is shut down. I've got friends there. I've got a home there.
Yeah.
And I was trying to decide whether I was going to spend, I figured it was going to be a month, whether I was going to spend it in Las Vegas or spend it in Los Angeles. When you shut down a city like that and you shut down all the hotels on the strip, they are going to be so badly hurt for not months, but years, because they lose conventions like yours.
Right.
The fact that they reached out, the fact that they were aggressive and proactive, and that they were willing to give you control over the date. So I'm mad at some airlines because they have hassled my friends over returning their money, saying, wait a minute, okay, we were shut down, but you canceled your trip. We didn't cancel the flight. That's crap in my book.
I agree.
And some of these airlines deserve, and I won't use names, United. I don't want to call anybody out United.
Right.
But there are some airlines that took advantage of this and took advantage of their customers. And the fact that Wynn Las Vegas sought to work with you and to make this happen, good for them. And that is a message to your members,
right,
and to people who are seeking this connection online.
Right.
Don't wait for someone to call. Call them first.
I totally agree. So let's shift a little bit into the political world. First of all, the messaging of, I know, it's like your least favorite thing, right? So COVID-19, coronavirus, from a messaging standpoint, this is just hitting us over and over and over and over again. If you had the ear, which you probably do, of the communications representatives from Washington, what's the best way to communicate the word choice of coming back? And I know you've come up with so many impressive word combinations to represent an industry. Maybe you can talk about a few of those where someone was using one word combination, but then you came up with another based on your data. How do you see that with COVID-19 and coronavirus in rolling out messaging that is on point and something that's going to empower Americans to get back to work, to kind of get back into a positive groove? Any thoughts on that?
Well, an example would be social distancing, because that's a negative, staying away from people. And yes, sometimes you got to give the negative to get people to actually act. But what it really is social protection. And the people who were not listening to it were individuals in their teens and 20s. And they didn't realize, no, I'm not sick.
Okay.
They didn't realize, I actually have, I should drink from it. They were infecting their grandparents. And it was not an issue of distancing, it was an issue of protection. And they should have talked about social protection or personal protection. It would have been a better use of language. The other thing, and I say, and I'll give one piece of advice to the president and one piece of advice to his Democratic opponent. To the president, empathy. It is not just what you did, it is still hearing. Look, I am nervous, I am anxious. I know the data, and I know that as long as I am smart and don't do foolish things, I'm going to be okay. But I'm still afraid. And I watch these news programs and I'd have to turn it off. And for everyone who's had to shut off a news program because it just became too much, I owe you an apology. I used to laugh at people like that, and now I'm one of them because I just can't take it. As I saw the overcrowding of the New York hospitals and this disease spreading, it was too much for me. And I say to the president, yes, a lot of us are afraid, and no, we're not weak, and we're not anti-American, and we still believe in the greatness of our country, but a lot of people have died. And people I know, I thank God, I do not know anyone who's died, but I know people who've been on ventilators, and I know that when they came out, they're not the same. And that's one of the things that we've never really explained is once someone needs a ventilator, they're in trouble for a long time. And I wish that there was more empathy for those of us who know people. And for the vice president, it's important for him not only to project leadership, because his position right now is very tough as the challenger.
Right.
But when he has ideas, he's got to be able to communicate them in full sentences. He's got to be able to say them without being interrupted, without losing his train of thought. And that means to simplify his message.
Right.
That he is not expected to have the answers, not now, not in April, but he is expected to explain what he thinks and potentially even what we could do better incomplete thoughts and not get lost as he has been doing in some of his interviews. So both of these people could be communicating better. Both of them, look, 94% of Americans, I know you're going to get here, so I'll get here before you. 94% of Americans have made up their minds. There's only 6% that haven't. And there's only 11 states that are really in play. The other 39 have made up their minds who they're voting for. So that represents 2%, like 2.3% of America. That's it. So for that 2.3%, if you're one of them, if you're undecided in a swing state, you really matter.
Right.
But for the rest of us, the election's already over.
So how's he polling? Give me your thoughts on that.
So Biden is right now in the nationwide numbers. Biden is leading an average of about 4 or 5%. If you just look at those 11 states, it is a dead heat. Trump does better in the swing states than he does nationwide because there are so many Democratic voters in California and New York that they overwhelm the other states. And it is just too close to call. You would be a fool if you attempted to project this election right now. We don't even know if they're going to have conventions. I believe the Republicans, I believe Trump, that he is determined to have a face-to-face convention the last week of August. And I believe the Democrats that they may bring it online the week before. And that'll be an interesting experiment and experience. How do you engage people? Because that will be a record gathering. If the Democrats do that, if they decide to kill the face-to-face and do it online, you'll have more people dialed into that than I think any event.
Let's talk about that right now. So in 2012, the IMA, we talked about online voting and to get that going sooner than later back then, because we predicted you'll get stronger voter turnout, you get more accuracy. If you can go online banking off your phone, why can't you do online voting? It would save money. Tell me your thoughts on online voting, it actually being a possibility. And I want to preface this, that a lot of the leadership in Silicon Valley that we are directly in communications with is very bullish on this. They want to get involved. Do you think this could be a possibility in November?
I don't, and here's why. And I know this is not the answer you're expecting or wanted, but there is so much of an issue now over voter integrity. Republicans talk about people who shouldn't be voting, who are illegal and participating, and Democrats talk about voter suppression, people who should be voting, and it's being made difficult, if not impossible, for them. And you know what? Both of them have a case. And online voting does expand the voter pool, but you cannot convince Americans right now, with all this chaos going on, if they can't get masks and ventilators to people who need it, can they really validate an online vote? I think it'll be here by 2024. I think this will be the last presidential election where we don't do it. Mm-hmm. And the idea that people may have gotten sick in Wisconsin because they had to vote in person is sickening to me. So I see the arguments on both sides. But I don't believe we're going to extend it. It would take a vote of Congress. States have some control over this, but I don't think online voting, I think governors may try it. I think it'll be challenged in the courts.
Right.
We're just too close to the election to make a change that big, but it'll happen by 2024.
Yeah, it is very interesting, Frank. And, I look at how government is working fast on quick solutions in other areas. If you look at the payroll protection program through the SBA and how fast there was alignment and execution around that, although it seems to be a complete mess, right? Like what's going on in your mind with the PPP program?
There's a big but, which is yes, they put it together very quickly, but did it work? Trump says it worked. I know dozens, and I'm not exaggerating, dozens of businesses that could not get access, dozens of businesses that did not get a check, that some banks were prepared, some banks were not, the federal government shut down. If you said to me that just as we could do paycheck protection and we could do voting, I'd say to you that is the perfect reason why we're not ready to do it.
Right.
That is the perfect
But
reason.
let's go down this hole really quick. Now, I look at economic stimulus, bring in the SBA, bring in private banks, and all this consortium, a little bit different than online voting, where I can see a couple organizations up in Silicon Valley, maybe in Redmond, Washington, you know what I'm talking about, coming together to put together this platform, which really isn't that difficult. The security, reliability, scalability, making sure that you cannot have voter fraud. It's a single vote entry and exit. To me, it's not comparing the two. I believe that it could happen if the right factions came together now, and I think you'd have a better turnout. But it is an interesting conversation, and I want to go right back to payroll protection really quick.
Hold on.
Okay,
I'm going to respond to you.
Hit me back.
The Russians will spend every ounce of energy and dollars they could to wreck that system. And we already know that they had an impact. I'm sorry, Mr. President, but the Russians were engaged in an advertising effort. I've seen the ads. I've seen the campaigns. I did not know that some of them were foreign generated. I was shocked because there is a time when I went on national news and said, this ad's a really good ad. And I know that the campaign denied having done it, and they were telling the truth. They had not done it. And I know that for every effort we will put in, both the Russians and Chinese will try to hack it.
Yeah.
We have enough crap going on
So
right
let me
now.
come
We
back
have enough sick people right now. We have enough trouble with bailing out the country. Let's not add something more.
So check this out. When you have foreign entities that are hacking digital advertising, I think that's one delta. But online voting is a lot like online banking in my programming brain. The way that it's set up, the encryption, it's unhackable. It could be hacked, but the efforts to hack and to only drain a small, little tiny pimple on the back of an elephant really wouldn't script the whole system. So I can see your point of view, but I really believe that there's a valid case with the right entities. It has to be a private-public partnership to roll it out. I think you'll get stronger voter turnout and more accuracy. Back to you.
Here's the issue, which is you don't have to prove it to me.
Okay.
You have to prove it to the American people.
Right.
And there's a segment of the American people that don't know how to do a Zoom call.
Right.
Don't know how to do a crowdcast town hall meeting, that don't understand this. There's a segment of the public that doesn't even have an email address.
Sure.
And those are the people who are most at risk. And the people who are least at risk are the ones who find this technology easy and believe in it.
Frank, let me ask you a question.
That's my only issue, is that you won't convince the country.
Right.
So even the best laid plans have failed. And all that I say for those who make a living on this is that you and I can talk via this Zoom program.
Right.
And hundreds or thousands of people will see this. But we have the luxury of this. There are tens of millions of homes that do not have high-speed internet. There are tens of millions of homes that do not have the opportunity that you and I have. And there are millions of homes where the kids are not getting educated because they don't have this technology. In New York, in Los Angeles, in Chicago, in many of our major cities, there are a lot of kids being left behind, and it is a tragedy. I'm on your side. I believe in what you're trying to do. I believe in not only in the principle of what online does, I believe in the reality of it. And I believe that you're going to lead America, but not everyone, not everywhere. And genuine empathy is recognizing those who are being left behind and trying as best we can to service them as well, to bring them into the 21st century, to give them the digital access that you and I take for granted, because in the end, that will make us a stronger country. And in the end, we'll be judged not by how we treat our strongest, but how we treat our weakest.
So let's talk about empathy.
You had the perfect ending. I
love it. I freaking love it, man.
I gave you.
Let's talk about.
You get one more question. How about that?
No. Okay, empathy. When you have an incumbent, right, who usually just slides into a second re-election, the everything has changed, right? Since coronavirus, this virus economy in the world. Would you say Trump kind of had that incumbency re-election before all this happened? And now what advice would you give for him to get back in the rankings? Just curious.
No, I don't think he had it given to him. And here's what's interesting. I have a lot of Republicans who tell me they're sure that he's going to lose. I've got a lot of Democrats who tell me that they're sure that Biden is going to lose. I've never seen more people believing that the side they don't support is going to get elected. What is going to happen in the end is that neither candidate will have a majority. Both candidates will have over 45, but under 50%. We'll have about 6% that will swing back and forth between them. Both candidates will have a negative job approval rating. And in the end, the election will be decided by people who don't like either candidate, which is why the debates become so important. And I absolutely believe they're going to happen. And I think they're going to happen live. And I think they will happen both online and on TV. Although I've got a bigger online audience than we've ever had for that. And I think that the viewers have to be prepared, because we're going to have so much presidential advertising online, and so much of it will be negative that it's going to make you nervous to turn your computer on, because that's what's going to pop up.
Last question, Frank. I'm going to kind of group all this up. The internet, I feel like, is behaving very, very badly. When the internet first came on in the late 90s, it was like the internet 1.0. It was the World Wide Web. Then internet 2.0 came in, social media. And now there's so much user-generated content that between media, influencers, people's comments on social media, it's becoming a complete shit show of what's real and what's not. What are your thoughts of the internet behaving badly, how social media has fueled the pandemic, and the impact this is having on our modern current economy, and how we get back with all this flood of some fact-based and some non-fact-based information that's out there?
So I go out of my way. So my follower base is, I've actually polled it, it's 60% Republican, 24% Democrat, and 16% truly independent. And there are very few people who, and that's not balanced, but it's amazingly balanced for most places. Most pundits, most people who do what I do are 90-10. And what's strange about my Twitter is that I get more abuse from the right than I do from the left. And I will post things every single day that will be nourishment for both sides, and that I go out of my way to find balance and to try to post things that are informational, factual, that I have a defense, that it's very rare that I just post opinion, and it's usually because of something I just saw and I'm offended by it. Mm-hmm. But number one is make sure your facts. Don't post something. Don't forward something if you know that it's not true. The second thing is that when I do forward, and I do now, and I never did this before, I forward memes and I forward videos. I make sure that I send the challenging information. So if there's a video that's anti-Trump, I will actually send it to Trump people to remind them to be humble. If it's anti-Biden, I'll send it to Biden people to remind them that we still have an election. And I know that most people do exactly the opposite. So I want to be the one guy that tries to level the playing field. And the third thing is to remember that even though we don't know someone who is a victim of this disease, we do know someone who's been economically ravaged by it. We absolutely do. Yeah. How you can be so mean and so dismissive and so rude on Twitter and try to justify it in any way, I don't understand. And the problem is that we're now that rude to each other. I wore a Bernie Sanders t-shirt yesterday when I walked in LA, and every day I do 2 miles. And I had people yelling at me, hey, Bernie Sanders, I'm not going to use the language, but F you. Now, you know, I'm not a Bernie Sanders supporter. I just wore the shirt.
Republican side. Okay.
And they're swearing at me.
Right.
I'm like, guys, no.
Well, you do live in LA, Frank. See, in Orange County, it'd be a little bit different.
Well,
We would keep our comments to ourselves.
but there's no excuse to behave that way. Online, offline, face to face, anyway. And I just urge people, think twice before you're mean. Not now.
And this is the very, very end. Now, Elon Musk once wanted to create a rating service for media, right? On fact-based or non-fact-based. Why do you think that never worked? Because a lot of times people want to know, is this one article on CNN or Fox News or on Google accurate? And how can that be substantiated? Wikipedia has done a good job, but how come journalists have never had a rating system on impartiality around journalism integrity? Just curious on this final question.
There's one that Stephen Brill has tried to create. And I don't know where it stands now, but I know that they did an effort. It's an online effort. And it's, the last I heard of it, it was like, it had a, and I won't want to use the word like. By the way, if any of you use the word like, you're never going to be invited to an interview. It has a red and a yellow and a green. And a green is regarded as being factually based. Yellow is read this stuff with caution. And red is, it's just ideological and it's meant to make a point, not to provide statistics or information. So I would Google
Okay, I'll check that
Stephen
out.
Brill to see what, because I don't remember what it's called, but he was trying to do it. And as far as ratings, we may have it. I think we'll have it by this time, and I think we need it. And also in terms of even responses, even websites that people go to, I think we should know, since programming is now being released on Amazon and Hulu, a lot of streaming services, and Apple and Google and YouTube. I think we should know, I think there should be a rating in terms of quality, and there should be a rating in terms of viewership. And we really should know, are we listening to someone who's got 50 followers or 5 million followers? I think that stuff does matter.
Absolutely. Dr. Frank Luntz, I think this was one of the best interviews of my career. Thank you so much. And my father got me into Toastmasters, and I'm telling you, I thought it was a beer drinking club, but it really helped me become a really good communicator. And through my life as a professional, as well as personally, the matter of the words that exit our mouth are so important. And you've really personified that for so many businesses, our industry, elected officials, and to all of our frontline workers, government officials, everyone that has their hand in this current issue that we're all going through. Thank you for all your work. And for the Internet Marketing Association, I present to you Frank Luntz, and I really appreciate your time today. And I wish you all the best from our group to yours.
But before you go,
yes,
do you have a date for your conference?
October 2nd, 2020. We're doing it.
You know what? It's pretty good. That's right before the election. That's 1 month before the election. And we're going to be having one hell of a ride online. Your timing is perfect.
We're very fortunate. We always do it in the fall. So thank you again, Frank.
Thank you, guys.